All right, y'all. So, we started off this episode with the newly married DeAndre. They are knocked out in bed, having reminiscent dreams of their epic wedding night, right? And so they're woken up by a call from the front desk, basically letting them know that, look, y'all, it's time to check out. You gotta get it together. Get right or get left, or play this late checkout fee. So Danny is like, when the hell did we check in? And so she's asking Andre, she's like, well, do you know where the hell we are? And so Danny thinks that they're on, I was so like, what? She thinks they're on a cruise ship. And then she was like, nah, you know what? It was the bill. It was the bill. And remember, she meant name the drink the bill, and it sounded strong and terrible at the same time. And so Andre then is like looking at his phone, and he's like, oh shit, we in Vegas. They're both having flashbacks to their wedding ceremony and the Anita impersonator being involved. And then they suddenly realize, like, oh, we're actually married, because as you can see, the wedding certificate is sitting on top of the statue's head, and he done folded it into a paper hat. And that's just how drunk they were. Okay. That's just how drunk they were. Bless their hearts. All right, let's move on to this. I was about to say Eric. Derek, you ain't okay. Let's talk about Derek. Derek comes back to Ashley's apartment. He's now on outpatient therapy. And so he's, over the moon that she's kept his little dusty ass chair. I don't know why. So Naomi and Jacob come out of the bathroom, surprise Derek, and they like, oh yeah, we made some updates, to kind of help you navigate like your new normal. And of course, Derek's just sitting there like, oh, thanks. And I was like, Derek, you going to hell. Okay. So I guess Ashley notices the awkwardness and the tension because, little does she realize Derek is keeping something from her. But she's trying to, keep him from crashing out, because he's like, oh, I can't believe that they put a shower bar, and your bathroom is your sanctuary. And I honestly, literally, my notes say you should feel like a piece of shit right now. You absolutely should. But I guess because Ashley done played in your face and played back and forth, now it's your turn. Is this what this is? A vicious game? Are you getting your lick back, Derek? I don't know. So, Ashley's like, don't worry about it. I apologize for, overwhelming you, but I reassure you that you're not my patient, nor are you my problem. And I said, girl. So now we see Doug. Doug that completely lost his mind. And he down at the uptown with Vanessa, and he's drunk and he got attitude. And he's like, oh, you late. You real late. So she's like, you know what? I really hope this goes better than the last time. And he said, well, that's entirely up to you. So Vanessa said, look, what is the occasion for you to be throwing it back like this? And so Doug says, I remember who you used to be before you became someone else. And so Vanessa said, you know what? I'm going to need you to get whatever you need to say, all this talking around in circle. I need you to get what you need to say off your chest. Doug tells her, I've been invited to an exclusive high stakes poker game, and I'm going. And Vanessa said, I like, hell you are. Martin and Samantha are down at Orphe Jean's to see June. And Samantha quickly picks up on the fact that her and June both are, share intricacies like, clumsiness when they get nervous. And that was cute, I guess. So Samantha's like, oh, thank you, Dad, for not telling Smitty about, me coming out here to see June. And so Martin said, look, I don't like keeping secrets from your daddy. I literally just got off the couch my damn self. I ain't trying to be back on the couch or out the house. And so Samantha said, okay, well, we can tell him after. So that's what Martin goes back home, right? And Smitty is working on a piece about the potential fallout of biological parents re-entering a child's life after adoption. He wants to highlight all the different perspectives. I'm gonna come up here in my Smitty glasses, okay? It's for creative purposes. So he said, I want to highlight all the different perspectives. And so Martin tells him, well, I just think the story is a little too close to the bone. You know what I'm saying? That's a little too close. And Smitty tells him, well, we're both the poster parents for a successful adoption. And so I feel like, if I'm respectful of people's feelings and tell them about looking out for potential pitfalls. Okay. So Martin cuts him off and says, oh, so if you raise your children with a strong moral fiber ethic, then they know right from wrong and they can stay out of the chaos. Okay. And so Smitty says, no, it's not like they can do whatever they want whenever they want. They still need boundaries. And so then this was Smitty said, Martin, where are them kids? And so Martin tells him what, Tyrell's at the movies, I think. And Smitty said, and Samantha. And then Martin said, oh, well, she down at the orphanages with June. And Smitty not gonna be happy about that. Martin, you might as well put that blanket and that pillow right back on that couch, because that's where you gonna be. So back at Orphe Jean's, Samantha and June are talking, and June tells Samantha that, she's happy to make time for her, and she feels privileged that Samantha even wants anything to do with her after everything, that's transpired and she's done to them kids. And so Samantha said, well, you did the right thing by giving me and Tyrell and away, and that's what's important. And so she was like, how are you liking the job? And, they make small talk. And June was like, it's different, they're hanging out on the street. But, she said, I met your grandma and is it your grandma, your great grandma, Anita. She's a real classy lady. And so June asked Samantha, with all these women around you, I kind of got the same question that your daddy said. Why you want to talk to me? So Samantha said, well, I need some advice on boys. So she starts filling June in or Nathan and how, Kat got in her ass because she had him back at the boom boom room, and how he was, trying to get in her drawers, and, she wasn't ready. And so June was like, well, is Nathan a good kid? And so, she's like, there's a big difference between good and nice. And so she encourages Samantha to, look, just take your time, find yourself, and that boy can wait. And I said, well, you know what? I didn't give June enough credit. You do your you right. That's you're damn right, June. That is great advice. So Samantha is figuring out how to, Samantha is figuring out, well, how do I know if he really likes me? And June said, be yourself. So Samantha said, but I don't know who I am yet. So how do I be myself? I said, Jesus, help your children. Don't let them fall to the side of the road. Okay. All right, let's move on to we see Joey and Marcel meet up real quick at the casino. And he lets them know, look, I got a job for you. And, do we need to go over the details? And Marcel said, nah, I know what I need to do. This ain't my first rodeo, bro. And so Joey said, you know what? I need more people around you like me. And so Joey tells him, look, this job is up your alley. And I said, up. I mean, y'all already know, for those that were on Twitter and Blue Sky with me, we already know what we're down today, but I ain't gonna spoil it for y'all. But going up yonder, I can't sing, or Lord knows, y'all know I'd be up here belting my heart out. So then we jump back over to Naomi and Jacob. They come back, and so they're like, oh, let's go get something to eat. And Derek's like, I really just don't want to go out. Why don't y'all just go pick it up or whatever? And so Ashley and Naomi just, decide to run out and hunt and gather, as they call it. And they give Derek and Jacob some alone time. So Jacob was like, so after they leave, Jacob was like, yo, that was kind of obvious that you was rushing him out of here. Like, what's going on? And so Derek cuts him off and said, where's the thing that I told you to bring from my apartment? So apparently he wanted to find this ring that he had proposed to Ashley with. So Derek talks about how surprised he is, how things have changed between him and Ashley. And, he's so lucky to have her, even though she's only with you for sympathy. It's really sad. And so he was like, you know what? I need to find a better hiding spot for it. So he decides he's going to put it on top of the bookcase, only for a big, heavy book to fall right on, fall on him or on his leg, and him react, and Jacob realizes, oh, that can feel. Now, Smitty is going all the way off at Martin, getting in his behind. I ain't never seen Smitty raise his voice like this, y'all. And so Martin is like, I don't understand what the issue is. June had been around him before, and Smitty thinks, no, it's different. And Martin was like, no, they sit in the middle of all free J's. What's the worst that can happen? And Smitty starts going off about June is just getting off drugs. And here you go, keeping another secret from me. Like, we ain't just go through this last week. And I said, well, so he tells Martin that, you know what? And so Martin was like, look, Samantha came to me. And he was like, yeah, because it was easy. And he was like, you know what? I can't even believe you would risk our relationship for some cool points with your kid. I said, oh, Smitty. So Martin's like, but I told you the truth. And Smitty hollers back after the fact, like you do every single time. And I said, well, he's on the roll today. Martin was like, look, Samantha confided in me. I don't know what you want me to do. And Smitty said, because she trusted you to lie to me because that's your pattern. I said, whew, it's like 3-0 right now. It's really bad. It's really bad. So they agree that, you know what? We ain't gonna argue about it right now, but you better go ahead and get that blanket and that pillow and make your way downstairs. And so Smitty said, you know what? I don't want the kids seeing June without a family member present. Am I clear? So Martin agrees and tells him, you know what? All right, I'm gonna go get Samantha. And Smitty said, no, no, no. I'm going. Because we ain't no more unilateral decisions around here. And I said, well. So down in Uptown, Naomi is questioning Ashley. She's like, girl, what are you doing? And Ashley's like, what are you talking about? I love Derek. And so Naomi has to remind her, girl, you turned him down like a month ago. And so Ashley said, well, that was about a month ago. Things are different now. And Naomi was like, yeah, because he had a tragic accident and now you feel sorry for him. This is a sympathy relationship at this point. This is a trauma bond. So Ashley said, look, I didn't propose to him out of pity. And so Naomi said, well, please let me hear your reasoning because what happened with Andre? Or so Ashley was like, you know what? We just realized that we belong with other people. So Naomi said, and Derek's accident didn't have nothing to do with that. And so Ashley said, look, it was a wake up call of how much Derek meant to me. And I believe that we're just, destined. And I said, girl, I guess so. Now, Vanessa is still going at it with Doug, or mind you, I should say Doug is still going at it with her. So Vanessa asked Doug, like, why am I here? And so Doug said, you know what? I ain't signed up to be your side piece, but you always wanted more. Something extra so you could be naughty because it was just too easy to be respectful. And you had to keep it flirty and dirty. I said, damn. Doug said, look, I'm going to give you a good monologue before I leave here, okay? So Vanessa said, where is this coming from? And Doug said, from the man who loved you. He says his beautiful princess has turned into something he can't even describe. He asked her, what are you? And Vanessa said, disgusted and tired of these arguments. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So Doug is like, forgive me. I've grown fond of our verbal fisticuffs because it actually inspires passion from you. Vanessa said, you know what? Which I'm not going to let you do is bait me like that because whose fault is that? And said, you know what? You should have kept this behavior at home. And Doug said, look, I ain't taking no direction for you. You can call your companions for that. And I said, whoa. We are between Smitty and Doug, we were on fire. It's like, you know what? Hush. And she's like, how many have you had? And so Doug says, not enough to fill the void. I said, ooh, that's just trying to get him to leave and go home. And Doug said, nah, I'm going to my high stakes game. And Vanessa said, please don't do that. And he says, I'll quit my vices when you quit yours. And then so he looked at her and said, I'm dipping. I got a game to play, something I can actually win. Vanessa was like, all right. But you know what? With your luck, I wouldn't count on it. And I was just like, that, I'll hold it in, but I'm sure she's regretful of those words. So then we move on to Jacob, who's questioning Derek on why he isn't excited about basically getting the feeling back in his legs. And Derek admits that, well, I ain't really told Ashley and I don't want to say anything because, I wanted to be a surprise. And Jacob said, but Ashley being a nurse, don't you think she gonna notice like signs of progression in her patients? And Derek was like, I ain't her damn patient. And I was like, oh. So he was like, look, I think we've been through enough and I just don't want to give her no false hope. And so he was like, look. And so no, he asked Jacob, please let me tell Ashley when I'm ready and in my own way. And he was like, I'm not looking for your approval. I'm just asking for your silence. So at this point, Naomi and Ashley return with the food. And you could just tell that basically Derek is silently pleading for Jacob's silence. And so basically, Naomi gives this whole toast to them and being such a wonderful couple and their future together. And I was like, yeah. So you know what I think he's going to do, guys? I feel like he's literally going to wait to the day of the wedding. And then like he's just gonna get up out of his chair and stand up after they like exchange vows. And she's just gonna be so caught off guard and not know what to do in front of all those people. Why should I tell you? I don't know why. I'm throwing my line out there, y'all, but that's what I foresee. I really see him play. I feel like I've seen that on one soap before where somebody had something like that and then they just got up and walked. Maybe I'm tripping, but y'all let me know what y'all think. Because right now it's giving a little piece of Haley tease, and I need to know what the end game is. All right, so Danny and Andre, they over here looking for photos from the wedding, but both of their phones are dead. And so Danny tells Andre, you know what? There's nobody I would rather not remember marrying than you. Okay. So Andre asked Danny, well, what do you plan to tell your family? And she said, I'm grown. Both know they're in for a rude awakening upon returning to Fairmont Crest. And so Andre tells her, look, nobody ain't got to know we married. We can just, keep it under wraps, just get it a no, act like this never happened. And so they talk about how they plan to tell the family, but they said, you know what? We're going to figure it out. And I love it how they just walked out of there hand in hand, husband and wife, DeAndre. And I said, okay. And I was just so happy Andre changed his clothes because I was not feeling that mustard. But I do like your color, Danny. That was very good. It looks very good on you. Just not for him. But you guys coordinate very well together. Although I think the wedding was a little extra, and I do think a lot that of what happened today was a lot of extra that I didn't like of them being in his face. About Was this Tuesday's episode? Yeah, I just thought about this. Oh my God. Bless my heart, y'all. I've had a busy week. I just realized this is Tuesday's episode. I apologize. Um, so anyway, no. So yeah, so I think they look good together. And once we finally got past the whole marriage of it all, it's gonna be interesting, but I think they're gonna ride it out. I think they're gonna ride it out and we're gonna be here to watch it, to watch the train. I won't say wreck, but So then we see Smitty run into Marcel when he goes down to Orphe Jeans. And so Marcel tells him, oh, well, I got that copy of that little profile you wrote. Marcel said, look, you should be thankful that you took the high road. And Smitty said, well, you don't really go in that space, do you? And Marcel responds, nah, because that air, it's just too rarefied up there for my taste. So Smitty said, look, there's two different versions of that story on a hard drive, on a cloud, and in a safety deposit box. And so he warns Marcel that if you ever cross the line, the world will know the truth and it's going to go viral. So Marcel assures him, please understand the Duprees have way more to lose than I do if that story ever sees the light of day. And so, you know what? He said, if I were you, I would delete that story. And Smitty tells him it won't make the truth about him disappear. And, of course, Marcel just leaves him standing there. He's like, you know what? Let me leave before I catch another body. So then we see June still advising Samantha that, look, girl, take your time. Stop trying to grow up too fast. Anybody would be lucky to have you. Chill out. And so I love this advice. And June was telling her, Nathan's fronting. And, you know, she warns her that sometimes when we like somebody, it's easy to lose yourself in them and not listen to your intuition. And she tells her to protect that because that's her Janie voice. And so Samantha recognizes this, or, that from their eyes were watching God. So Samantha thanks her for the advice, and June tells her, look, stay away from people pressuring you. And so Samantha was like, well, can I come see you again? And June's like, well, I need you to get your daddy's permission, but I am here for you anytime that you need me, right? So then Samantha, of course, is confronted by her daddy. And Smitty is like, you know what? Go get in the car. Go get in the car. See the kids, get in the car. And Samantha's like, can we have a conversation? He was like, no, we'll have a conversation at home. And she was like, but you're gonna do all the talking. He was like, you're damn right. This is the one part I didn't like. I said Smitty was on a rampage this episode. June is like thanking Smitty and is like, oh, thank you so much for letting me see Samantha. And Smitty was like, yeah, Samantha didn't really ask for permission. And he said, and if she did, I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't have allowed it. So June is like confused. And Smitty said, look, me and Martin let you see the kids for closure. But when you put them up for adoption, it was so they could have a better life. He said they're thriving And we don't need you to come along disrupting that. And I say, God damn, Smitty, that was, I mean, whew, whew, delivery. So June says, look, if they want to see me as Smitty cuts her off and lets her know they're underage. And if I want this to end at any point, it can and it will. I said, oh. So June said, did I do something wrong? I don't understand. And Smitty said, if my kids want to see you, I'm not going to stop them. However, they might have been able to forget how you let them down, but I haven't. He was like, I was there when you signed them away, and I'll be there if you hurt them. And he said, but if you do, I'm warning you, it'll be the last time either one of them makes that mistake. Okay, so we see Tyrell and Martin. They're at home having a heart to heart, and Martin lets him know, I miss us. I miss our time together. And he admits, I know you disappointed in me, and Martin apologizes for like the umpteenth time, and he's like, look, I hope one day you'll understand. And Tyrell said, look, all I know is today and now. And Martin was like, well, I felt like we were moving in the right direction after pizza night and the spades. And, I know we may not be able to get back to where we were, but I hope we can, start off strong now. Martin asked him to talk. And Tyrell says, well, only if I can tell the truth. And so he said, I thank you for not micromanaging when June came out of nowhere. And he said, it's commendable. And then it goes on into this really cute moment about, him letting him win in chess for years. And so they pull out another game. I thought it was Mancala. I heard of it before, but I ain't never played it. And Tyrell is asking him about some bill that he's working on trying to pass. And it was really cute father-son moment. And it's good to see them back on better terms. So now we see Joey and Vanessa meet up downtown at Uptown. He realizes he's there because Doug has done something. So Vanessa fills him in that Doug had one too many. He out here showing his behind. So Joey said, you know what? I feel like you need a change of scenery. I feel like we should go to Puerto Rico. First of all, I don't know why. Just knowing how Joey moves, I'm surprised Vanessa didn't pick up on the fact he was so insistent on them going away at this particular time, why she didn't, like, her wheels didn't start turning, right? Second of all, Doug literally just asked you last week to go on a second honeymoon, and you told him you didn't have time. Now, granted, you're not really hunching on Doug, so yeah, that's not really fun being on a honeymoon with somebody you're not really hunching, but still, so it's just interesting. But literally, when I watched this scene and before I even watched today or anything else, I said he is setting up his alibi. He is absolutely setting up his alibi in this moment. And that's why he wants to take her away. Because if they weren't there, they couldn't have done it, right? And so basically he's like, look, let me show you the way to paradise. And so at first Vanessa's fighting it, giving him the same pushback she gave Doug, but then, she agrees. Hell yeah, let's go. Boricua, Morena, Boricua. I'm just saying. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this recap. I appreciate you dealing with my congestedness and all that other fun stuff. If you haven't already, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms. That's the TikTok, the Twitter, the Facebook, the IG, the Lemonade, and the Blue Sky. And yeah, y'all, hopefully I will be back at it tomorrow. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And yeah, I will catch you for 136 and 137.